Hello and welcome to the extended video on your lesson about polyamorous relationships. So I don't know if you saw the video on YouTube, but I went over some disadvantages and some advantages to being in a poly relationship. Just really quick, I want to go over a few of these before we get into the real nitty-gritty of creating a polyamorous relationship and how to maintain a healthy poly relationship. So some of the advantages of being in a polyamorous relationship is that there's definitely more love and energy to go around. You will not find yourself just without this affection, because there are multiple people in the relationship that can give you what you need. There's definitely more support as far as, responsibilities are concerned, or if all members of this relationship are working, there's definitely more economic support in the relationship. There's opportunities for more sexual experiences. This cuts down on adultery. And also, this encourages freedom and less restriction in the relationship. Some of the disadvantages to being in a polyamorous relationship can be that you have to spend more money on your loved ones, that you are giving out more energy, twice as much or 3 times or 4 times as much, depending on how many people are in your polyamorous relationship. Jealousy can arise. The fact that there's not enough time in a day can really put a damper on how much time that you are able to spend with each individual in the relationship. So quality time can really be cut down on when you're in a poly relationship. The children can be affected as well in the relationship. Now that we've gone through some of the advantages and disadvantages of being in a polyamorous relationship, I would like to go into the topic of how you start a polyamorous relationship if you are not currently in one. The best way to start a polyamorous relationship if you're not currently in one is to find individuals who actually want to be in a polyamorous relationship. There's nothing harder than being with someone who's not really interested in doing that and trying to convince them in coming over to your ideal of what a relationship should look like. It's really difficult because a lot of people have insecurities, or maybe they just have their own personal beliefs about the way that a relationship should be ran. And so the best way to start a polyamorous relationship is to find individuals who actually want to be in a poly relationship. Now, you can find these people a multitude of ways. There are Facebook groups that you can join where there are individuals looking to get into a polyamorous relationship. There are actual dating apps and dating sites where people sign up and they are actively looking to get into a relationship with more than one individual. Now, if you have found yourself in a situation to where you are already in a relationship and now you're deciding that, being in a polyamorous relationship is something that you would want to try out, then I have a few suggestions for you. Firstly, have the conversation. Have the conversation with the person that you are with, because that is the best way to just break into it, is to just go ahead and say it, to go ahead and have the conversation. There's no good way to tell someone that you are with in a monogamous relationship with that you want to bring in an extra person into the relationship. Now, depending on how open or closed-minded the individual is that you are currently with will determine how hard it is for you to pull them over to your side of understanding about getting into a poly relationship. So again, if you are in a relationship already and you really want to be with this person, you just have to say it. Now, if this is someone that you are with and, things aren't really working out, the best thing to do would be to just end that relationship and go ahead and go and find someone who is okay with being in a poly relationship. Now, you run a risk if this is your first time, considering being in a poly relationship. You run the risk of, if you're in a relationship, leaving someone who could possibly be exactly what you want, for you to go and explore the ideal of being in a poly relationship. Because maybe you get into that poly relationship and you find out that this is not really something that you want to do. So it's really risky if this is something that you're just seeking out for the first time, because you don't really know if this is something that, one, you really want, or something that you can handle. This is not for the faint of heart. Being in a poly relationship brings about a lot of challenges, so you have to really be up for the challenge. Okay, now once you bring up to your partner the ideal of exploring a poly relationship, or even you might even consider it to be an open relationship, but what makes it a poly relationship is that you are expecting your partner to participate in this relationship with you. In an open relationship, you're just kind of both doing your own thing. No one's really being emotionally attached to other individuals that they are interacting with outside of their main relationship. In a poly relationship, you are making other individuals a part of your main relationship. Okay, so you have to remember that you're asking your partner to now join in with you in bringing someone else into your relationship. So this can be a little bit much on someone who has determined that they want to be in a monogamous relationship. So the best thing that you can do is to explain to them that it's not that they are lacking anything. It's not that they are inadequate. It's just that you have other desires that you would like to fulfill, and that there's nothing wrong with them, but that you just really want to take the burden off of them, and to maintain the relationship that you have with them because you love them, but you really would like to have different desires, or different things fulfilled for you personally. When you introduce a poly relationship to someone who you've been monogamous with, it can bring about feelings of insecurity, or just a feeling of not being enough. So you want to make sure that you are giving extra love and attention to this person when you're introducing this idea. See, that right there in itself is a challenge. It may even be a disadvantage, because now you're going to have to work overtime to help them to feel like they are enough in this relationship, to help them feel secure in this relationship. The next thing you will want to do is to make sure that you are explaining to them what it is that you are trying to accomplish with opening up the relationship and turning it into a poly relationship. Explain to them in detail why it is that you feel that it would be best for the both of you, because this is not about being selfish. If you want to get into a poly relationship just because it's just something you want to try, I would not suggest that. I wouldn't suggest it, because you're playing with people's emotions. You might as well just leave whoever it is you're with and go find a poly relationship if that's something you just want to try out. Leave the relationship, give them that opportunity to emotionally disconnect from you, so maybe they could possibly go out and find what they really want. Okay, but if you feel like being in a poly relationship is for the best for the both of you, then you want to make sure that you are making that known. You want to make sure that you're really detailed about why it is that you feel like being in a poly relationship is going to be best for you and your partner. Now, if this is really a goal of yours and you really do feel like this would be best for the both of you, this conversation may need to happen a few times over a long extended period of time. When you're introducing a completely different ideal than something that someone has known for all of their lives, or something that they are rooted and grounded in, it will take a few times before the ideal really settles in their mind and before they can really see it from your viewpoint. So you have to really be invested with this person on introducing this ideal to them. And you have to find patience and tolerance with the way that they feel about it and their reaction to what it is that you're introducing to them. Because let's face it, if someone came to you and you only knew monogamy and you only wanted to be in a monogamous relationship where there is equal give and take and it's just the two of you in a relationship, to have someone come to you and to say, hey, I think we should have an extra person, can really throw someone emotionally. So you have to make sure that you are being as delicate with this situation as possible. Again, in my opinion, the best way to start it would just to be with someone who is already there mentally, who already knows that they want to be in a poly relationship and that this is something that they want to do. Because again, trying to pull someone from a monogamous mindset into this world of poly takes a great deal of effort. It may take more effort than what it really is worth. At the end of the day, if you're spending all of your time trying to convince this person to open up and to be in a poly relationship, you could possibly be spending a lifetime trying to convince someone to see it from your viewpoint. Now, if you're lucky enough to convince your partner to be in a poly relationship, or if you have decided to just go out and find someone who wants to be in a poly relationship, I have a few tips for you to make sure that you are cultivating the best environment for your poly relationship to grow. The first thing I have for you is to make sure that you create a relationship structure. Now, if you are with someone prior to finding a third person, you have to set up some type of structure. You need to know if you're in a relationship with this person and you're adding a person, and so you give more power or more say so to the person that you are with, or are you going to be in a relationship where everything is pretty much equal across the board? That's something that you need to know up front. If you're with someone who was previously monogamous, the best structure would be to allow them to have more say than the third party you're bringing in. Now, this can cause problems. It can, depending on the type of person that you're bringing into the relationship, because the third party may feel slighted. They may feel like they're being neglected, or maybe that they're not getting the best parts of the relationship because there's already someone who has more say. So you run that risk. But if you're in a monogamous relationship that has turned poly and this person has some reservations, I believe that's the best structure to use. Now, if you're going into a poly relationship with two people who are already poly and they understand the ways of being poly, then the best structure would be to make sure that everything is equal across the board. Once you've set up a structure, you want to make sure that you lay some ground rules. An example of a rule would be that no one is having sex unless all members of the relationship are present. This can be a really good rule to implement, because what you don't want to create is a sense of teamship or like a united front of two individuals against one, because two individuals are allowed to or have had the time to create more of a bond than they have had with the third person in a relationship. So implementing a rule like this can be really helpful. Another really good rule that you could possibly implement is that if there are any concerns or any problems in the relationship, that you come together all three at the same time to talk about the problems or the concerns, and that no one individual is talking to another individual about problems. Again, you don't want to create tension in the relationship. You want to make sure that it is an open space for people to communicate and talk. You are now operating as a couple, but in three. In a couple, in a monogamous relationship, there's no one else to run to in that relationship to talk about the next person. So you want to make sure that you are keeping this integrity in a third party situation. This makes sure that there's no united fronts that are going to happen and no one feels left out. There are lots of other really good rules that you can implement to make sure that your poly relationship is fortified and that the rules are for the advantage or the benefit of all members in the relationship. Once you have created a structure and you created some ground rules, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to need to create a schedule. Now, depending on your rule or any rules that you might have needed to implement before, let's say your rule is that no one can have sex unless all members are present. You're going to need to make sure that you're setting aside time where everybody can get together. And in those times that all three members are not able to get together, there needs to be some type of structure or some type of planning in place to allow people to spend time together and to be able to get that quality time and affection that they need from each other. Now, depending on how your work schedules go or what activities you have going on throughout the day, one or two members may not be able to be present all the time. So you have to make sure that you set a schedule that is going to be beneficial for everybody in the relationship. Because now you're not just working with one person, you're working with two. One example of setting a really good schedule would be A person is with B person on Tuesdays. C person is with B person on Wednesdays, and so on and so forth. This makes sure that everybody is going to get the ample amount of time to spend with each member in the relationship so as to create continuity and just to be able to build that bond in the relationship. And I would go even further to suggest that outside of sexual activities, that you make sure that you structure in and you plan in group activities for everyone to be there together. This is going to be very, very essential to the strengthening of the relationship. The last tip that I have for creating a healthy poly relationship is to make sure that you are listening to the concerns of each person in the relationship so that solutions can be found in order to benefit and strengthen the relationship. What you don't want to happen is for people to feel some kind of way or to feel slighted in the situation and to start doing things that undermine the integrity of the relationship. The only way that a poly relationship functions well is when everybody is on one accord. So, in order to make sure that people still feel open enough to share their concerns and their desires even, you have to make sure that you're willing to listen. You have to be tolerant and you have to be patient. More so when you're in a poly relationship than when you are in a monogamous relationship. Now, if there are an odd number of members in your relationship, which is usually the case because it's usually 3, but there can be more members in this poly relationship. If there is an odd number in the relationship, there needs to be a plan in place for when everyone is in disagreement with what is going on. There has to be someone who has the final say so in the way that the members of the relationship are going to move forward. Because what you don't want to happen is for you guys to come to some type of disagreement and some type of standstill and no one is is willing to move forward, or no one is being agreeable, and that can definitely bring about the demise of the relationship. So make sure that someone has the final say when there is a disagreement in the relationship. Now, I hope that I have brought some things to light for you to consider when going into a poly relationship. Um, these types of relationships take way more tolerance and patience than a monogamous relationship. It takes more time and resources and more understanding. So, if you are considering going into a poly relationship, make sure that you are emotionally and mentally ready to go into a relationship like this, because now you have more than one person's emotional state, more than one person's heart in your hands. Please think of me as your personal coach and consultant, and I will see you next time. Bye.